I already put some of this on. Now I can just use my concealer. That's okay. This is the best powder ever. If you have really, really oily skin like me, this is the Huda Beauty Easy Bake. I get the shade Sugar Cookie. I cannot recommend this one enough. Or if you want a drugstore one, I like the Maybelline Fit Me. Both work really well, but I will say I feel like the Maybelline one can get quite cakey really quickly, whereas with the Huda Beauty, I can do a couple layers and it just seamlessly blends. So you just have to be a bit more careful when you're using the Maybelline one. Then I'll just take this like cream product sometimes, not all the time, just for a little something. I don't like too much eyeshadow. I feel like it doesn't look good on me. And then I'll just like drag it down a bit and then just like a little bit of mascara. Call it a day. I woke up to the sound of rain, which is one of my favorite ways to get woken up by. I'm so happy it's another rainy day, and I think it's going to be raining tomorrow too. But I wanted to do a reading update. I haven't read all of these, however, I did read 2 of these. I finished Simple Passion by Annie Ernaux this morning, and then yesterday I finished Acceptance, which is book 3 of the Southern Reach series by Jeff Vandermeer. This one I read for my sibling book club. I still believe that the first one is by far my favorite. I did not like book 2 at all, and I definitely prefer Acceptance, but the first one is still my favorite. I don't know if we're gonna continue on with the series. I don't really have much thoughts about this one, but I have a lot of thoughts about Simple Passion. Let me start by saying this is the first time I read from this author. This is translated from French by Tanya Leslie. This won the Nobel Prize in 2022. The writing immediately took me back to these 2 authors. We have An Apprenticeship for the Book of Pleasures by Clarissa Spector, and then The Lover by Marguerite Duras. I absolutely love The Lover. I've thought about this book and read this book many times over. What I find interesting as well is that this book is mentioned in a lot of my other books, and it's random books. Like it would be a literary thriller called My Husband by Maud Ventura, it's mentioned. In a memoir called Committed on Meaning in Mad Women, it's also mentioned. Like the impact and the influence that this book has had in the literary space is incredible. But going back to Simple Passion, this book I randomly picked up. I was at a bookstore and I read the back of it. Never read anything from the author like I mentioned, but there was something in the back that I was like, you know what, this sounds like something that I would like because it focuses on themes of desire. She's talking about this relationship that she had with a married man. He was a foreigner and was only there for a short period of time. As the story progresses, it's a couple years later and then a couple years later, and she's reflecting back on this relationship that she had with this person. But the reason why this book reminds me so much of this book is how it talks about this passion. The feeling of it in An Apprenticeship or the Book of Pleasures, our main character is really struggling with wanting to live life to the fullest and experience these things and put herself in this really vulnerable position, and how she's reflecting on that. And in this book, she fully allows herself to feel liberating and empowering that is, and how it's such a luxury. I loved this book so much that I journaled my thoughts, and that's how I know that I really loved the book, is if I find myself having to journal after. It's only happened with a handful of books. But when she's talking about this passion, she says, "I do not wish to explain my passion. That would imply that it was a mistake or some disorder I need to justify. I just want to describe it. Maybe the only criteria to be taken into account should be of a material order, the time and the freedom available to me throughout the affair." And it's just general topics of this desire and how that impacts time, and then the memory, because towards the end she's reflecting back on this experience that she had. We start the story and she's fully consumed by it. She's living in it and breathing in it and wants to literally crawl under this man's skin because she cannot get enough of it. And then by the end of the book, we're removed from it and we're reflecting back on it, and time continues and we're back in the present. This emotional intimacy is so frightening for so many people, and it leaves people to take steps back instead of taking steps forward, which is what the conversation was about in An Apprenticeship or the Book of Pleasures. This understanding that you want to experience it. It's something that you crave and that we all need as humans. You need this connection and this intimacy. There's so much fear wrapped around it, and allowing yourself to go there. It's something that so many of us experience. Even more and more, I feel like as the years go on, it gets harder to find this connection with one another, and you're focused instead on like the rote mechanics of doing things rather than being present in the moment, allowing yourself to feel these things and to experience these things. Something that I took away from at the very end of this book, she says, "I discovered what people are capable of. In other words, anything. Sublime or deadly desires, lack of dignity, attitudes and beliefs I had found absurd in others until I myself turned to them. Without knowing it, he brought me closer to the world." In the very last paragraph, she's talking about luxury. And when she was a child, she viewed luxury with fur coats, evening dresses, villas by the sea. Now, I feel that it is also being able to live out a passion for a man or a woman. There's just so much to unpack with this one. And this one is down in the same category that I viewed these in. They're really short books. They pack such a big punch. All three of these authors are so precise. The writing is so powerful, and I'm so glad that I read this. This is now my second 5-star of the year, and it is the second book that I finished this year. Oh wait, no, I guess technically the third, because I finished this first. Third book that I read, and the second 5-star, because the first one was Never Let Me Go, which was my reread. Now it's time to pick the next book. I have a lot of options, and I am currently still in between 3 books, so logically it would make sense to just finish, for example, Committed, but it's raining and I have spare time and I kind of want to read something else. So I'm currently also reading Land of Milk and Honey. This is from my book club. I will read randomly a couple of these anonymous submissions, and this is a book Want. As far as a new book, they, funny enough, are all Aardvark Book Club editions. I have Hungerstone, which is my earliest release. This is a Carmilla retelling. I think I'm gonna lean this way, but the other 2 that I have on my radar is Catalina and Piglet. I started Piglet a few weeks ago, read a couple pages, wasn't into it in the moment, and so I just dropped it and did something else. I posted a video on TikTok about books talking about desire. Someone commented on that and said, "Oh, you should have put Piglet on the list." I was like, this Piglet? The Piglet that I put back down? I didn't know it talked about desire. I would have kept reading if that was it. All it took was 1 comment. It's back on the radar. And then I've seen a couple of people recently talking more and more about Catalina, and I'm intrigued. Those are my options. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and go with what I'm in the mood for right now. The weather is perfect. I drove home listening to No One Noticed by the Marias. I will listen to that song at least once a day. I hope you can hear that. I don't know if the camera picked that sound up, but it just sounds so beautiful out, and I'm so happy. I'm home, I'm comfy, I have all of my candles lit. I want to make a tea, and I want to start reading Hungerstone.